So what if the entire Christian faith, this massive global religion, could be boiled down into a single sentence? It sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, at the start of one of history's most influential letters, the Apostle Paul does exactly that. And in this explainer, we're going to unpack that one super dense sentence to get to the absolute heart of the Christian message. And here it is, Romans chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. I know, at first glance, it just looks like a long, complicated run-on sentence, but the source material we're digging into argues that this is actually a perfect, tightly packed summary of the whole thing. It's not just the introduction. It's like the entire argument in a nutshell. And this all leads us to a really fascinating question that kind of frames our whole discussion. The source says that to even begin to understand Christianity, you have to wrestle with this idea. What if the main thing, the core message, isn't a philosophy or a list of rules, but is totally, completely wrapped up in the identity of one specific person? Okay, so that brings us to our first major point. The source is absolutely emphatic about this. The gospel, or the good news, is fundamentally about a person. I mean, it's right there in the very first words of the verse we read, concerning his son. So here's the crucial distinction, the one thing you really got to get. The message isn't just about what Jesus taught, like a prophet showing up and delivering a message from God. No, the really radical claim here is that Jesus himself is the good news. His identity, his life, his actions, that is the whole story. And this slide really highlights just how unique that idea is. Our source points out that with most other major religions, you can pretty easily separate the teachings from the person who founded it, right? You can practice the philosophy of Buddhism without Buddha being essential to the process. But with Christianity, if you take the person of Christ out of the equation, the entire message just vanishes. He is the teaching. All right, so let's dig into the first of two massive claims that are packed into this one verse. The very first thing Paul establishes is the divine identity of this person. He is, first and foremost, the Son of God. Now, that title, Son of God, it carries some really specific theological weight. It doesn't mean a really good person who somehow became divine. The doctrine here is that he always was divine, co-equal and co-eternal with God the Father. That phrase, only begotten, is meant to put him in a category of one, totally unique from anything or anyone ever created. And this wasn't just some title that other people gave him. No, he claimed it for himself. According to the Gospels, when he said things like, "I and the Father are one," the people listening knew exactly what he was saying, that he was equal with God. And our source points out this was considered blasphemy, and it was the central charge that ultimately got him executed. But hold on, because that's only half of the puzzle in this verse. Paul immediately pivots from this huge claim of eternal divinity to something very specific, very grounded, a claim about his humanity and his royal bloodline. He's not just the eternal Son, he's also the human king. Okay, let's break this one little phrase down because I'm telling you every single word was chosen with incredible precision. Made of the seed of David according to the flesh. This little bit contains three distinct ideas that are totally foundational to the whole message. First up, that term was made. The original Greek word here suggests a change of state. It means to become something new. The idea isn't that he popped into existence at that moment. The point is that the one who already existed as the eternal Son became human. This is the whole doctrine of the incarnation. Second, what did he become? Flesh. And flesh here doesn't just mean a physical body, skin and bones. It means a complete human nature. A human mind, human emotions, a human soul. He grew up, he learned things, he got hungry, he suffered. The source really stresses this. He wasn't some god wearing a human costume. He was truly and fully human. And third, he wasn't just any human. He was from the seed of David. Now, this is a direct link to a very specific royal family. For a first-century Jewish audience, hearing this was like a giant flashing neon sign. It was an unmistakable claim that Jesus was the long-awaited Messiah, the rightful king from the line of David. And this slide illustrates that context brilliantly. If you look at the Old Testament prophecies, the promise of a savior gets more and more specific over time. It's like a funnel. First, he would come from humanity, the seed of the woman. Then, narrowed down to a specific people, the seed of Abraham. Then, a single tribe, Judah. And finally, one specific family line, the house of King David. The gospel writers took this lineage thing incredibly seriously. Both Matthew and Luke lay out these detailed genealogies that trace Jesus' family tree all the way back to David. And the source makes this fascinating historical point. These were public records. Anyone could look them up. But they were all destroyed when Jerusalem was sacked in 70 AD, which means that anyone claiming to be the Messiah after that date can never officially prove they were from David's line. So we have these two core claims, right? Fully God and fully man from a specific royal family. But our source asks a really critical question. In our world today, why does any of this ancient doctrinal precision actually matter? I mean, let's be honest. We live in an age that often puts feelings over facts, personal interpretation over firm definitions. We kind of have a you-do-you attitude. So does getting all these details right, this idea of an eternal son who became a human king, actually change anything for us now? To answer that, the source gives us this modern example. There was a Christian theologian reading the work of a brilliant Jewish scholar named Martyn. He was so impressed, he just couldn't understand why Buber wasn't a Christian. So the theologian kind of decided that maybe Buber was a Christian in his heart, even if he didn't, believe the core tenets. And this perfectly illustrates how we tend to think today, making the definition of Christian more about being a good person than about believing a specific creed. But the author of our source, a guy named Martyn Lloyd-Jones, comes back with this powerful counterargument. He basically says that without belief in this central, paradoxical claim that the eternal Son of God was made flesh, there's no Christianity left to even talk about. He argues this isn't some minor detail we can agree to disagree on. For him, it's the absolute foundation, and to abandon it is to betray the entire message. And really, that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This isn't just about ancient history or theology. It's a question about identity and definition itself. What happens to any movement, any philosophy, or any faith when the very person or idea at its center becomes a matter of personal opinion instead of a shared, concrete definition? It's a question worth pondering.